mics are actually cut, because otherwise, if you start talking straight away, the audio is still open, it will go over the video.
Hello everyone, welcome to our live show by Maastricht University. My name is Tessa and I'm a second year student at Maastricht University. In today's show we'll be going over a topic that's very important to many of our viewers, how to find the university and study that fits you best. We'll be making this show to help you make this decision. Today we will be going over some tips and tricks as well as experiences to help make this difficult choice a little bit easier. And we haven't just chosen any day to make this show. Today, October 1st, the registrations for the 2021-2022 academic school year have opened. In today's show, I will be joined by my friend Mona to share her experiences about choosing a university, and then later I will be joined by a student, Tare, to go over his experience in changing his studies, and then I will be joined by an expert, a career counselor at Maastricht University, Cybrin, who will share his expertise and try to work together to make this give you the tips and make this decision as easy and fun as possible. Okay, so Mona, I've gotten to know you recently and you shared with me some of the reasons why you've decided to go to Maastricht University. Would you mind introducing yourself and sharing your experiences to the audience?
For sure. All right. So my name is Mona. I am from Helsinki, Finland, and I'm a second-year bachelor student of psychology here in Maastricht University. And my experience, how I've reached this point, has been. It's a long story. Let's just start like that. So basically, in high school, I did an exchange year in Spain, and after which I just knew like, okay, going abroad after my high school was like the thing to do to me.
Yeah.
So I really like felt this like drive to go abroad and to discover myself and discover like other places and everything. And then I had like back then I had friends in the Netherlands, and I visited them many times. And I just fell in love with the study life, with the atmosphere, and especially with the fact that it's super easy to be an international student here in the Netherlands, especially here in Maastricht. And then the remaining question was only like what to study, right?
Yes.
So in high school I studied all the optional courses of psychology, and I just fell in love. I just like kind of reflected my studying process, and I was like, hey, I'm like actually vibing this studying, like psychology studying. It's not like, okay, I have to do this. It was like I love doing this. I'm super interested in that. And I think that just kind of like led me to the path of psychology.
Yeah.
And then I just started to compare like the course manuals of the course catalogs of like different universities here in the Netherlands, and like the Maastricht University psychology track, like the courses that it included was just like super appealing to me. And and yeah, then I just like went for it, applied, visited the city, fell in love with that. That was one of the factors as well. And yeah, what else to say?
No,
I
great.
think that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I mean, you covered it is a long process, you
Yeah.
know, all the steps you have to think of and what you have to consider,
Mhm.
but you summarized it well. And I think the key point that you made is that you reflected on what you were good at in the past,
Exactly.
what you were interested in studying,
Mhm.
and then zooming in on the place.
Yeah.
And then comparing the different options you have. So there's psychology programs throughout the Netherlands, but
Yeah.
what stood out about Maastricht University's psychology program to you?
Right. So basically, when you're comparing all these like programs that like there's psychology in every university, right? So I was just comparing the courses, and I found that like in Maastricht, it's the psychology part. So like the brain functions and all these like neurotransmitters and everything, like all that stuff, and that like kind of gave me like really a good feeling, just like towards the future. And I just wanted to like challenge myself, right?
Yeah.
Like in high school, I wasn't like that good in biology, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go with this. This has like great like reviews and everything, and I think that's something that many people, like many students that go to psychology, they don't maybe acknowledge that well. So I really want to like make our viewers now like just to make sure that like go through the course manual, like course catalogs, because it's super important. And yeah,
Yeah, you have to like the place and you have to like the study.
exactly. Yeah, the city is super important to consider seriously, but we will go there like next or something, or
Yes.
yeah, sure.
And for me, I mean, my experience was a little different. I started out at university in America, and I was studying a similar thing that I'm studying now, which is international relations. However, I found that the courses, as you mentioned, were a little too linear and restrictive for me, and I wanted to explore more. So I found university colleges. I really love that concept of being able to pick and choose and formulate your own curriculum. And I luckily also had connections to the Netherlands and was able to communicate with my good friend from back home about the city life, and she gave me insight because unfortunately, also due to Corona, not all students are able to fly and really visit the city. So there are other ways to do that in terms of accessing social media, exploring vlogs and YouTube videos, looking at pictures, and really getting a feel of the university. And after comparing the university colleges in the Netherlands, I found Maastricht is a charming city, very accessible in terms of language, topographically. It's not that big, so it was really nice. And now I can explore international relations in a more international environment with students from all over the world, which is key, especially for that study.
Exactly. Yeah, we definitely share some like same points, but like obviously our like paths, how we have ended up here is so completely different.
Yeah.
And our studies is different, so it's interesting to share our like insights on. Yeah.
And that's to be expected, and not everyone's going to have the same experience when following the steps to university. So we can give you tips and share our experiences, but just know that if you're not following, there's no one simple recipe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and when we're thinking about the study that we're going into, it's also important in comparing the universities to learn about the different teaching styles, right? Because that's also a huge appeal, at least for me, was having the active learning environment.
Yeah.
Because in the US, a lot of courses are taught simply by lecture, kind of like more passive learning and taking notes and then trying to memorize and regurgitate all up on an exam.
Right.
So did Maastricht's learning style appeal to you?
For sure. I mean, the thing is that it was a bit different in Finland. The education is kind of similar, so it's really active learning, and it's really like, interaction with the teacher, and it's like all like projects, blah blah, and that kind of like already linked to what we have here in Maastricht. So it's a PBL system, problem-based learning, and just taking like real life examples, real life problems of society, of real life. I think that's like the most practical and the most efficient way of learning, right? So I already knew that would be like the learning kind of strategy for me as a person. I like to like share my thoughts. I like to speak out loud. I want to like share my ideas and hear others' ideas, right? So I think like that's something that I really appreciate in our university, and that like helps a lot of students, even though they want like if somebody would be struggling, there's always some help, and the tutorials are really, really helpful, not only for me but to my friends as well. Everybody has been really like they have a positive like how to say Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? Did you like? Are you liking it? Do you?
I definitely, and I think it's such a collaborative experience, you know,
Yeah.
especially as I mentioned for international relations, it's really important that you have the different perspectives, and that's something you do in problem-based learning. You build on the knowledge you come there with, you do readings, you create learning goals as to what you want to acquire and what knowledge you want to gain for the next course, and you build on that. So it was nice that if I'm in an international relations course and we're talking about the Cold War, we're not just coming at it from the American perspective. That's so
Exactly.
important.
Yeah.
And I like having the accessibility of the teacher and the smaller class sizes, so that problem-based learning was definitely a big appeal for me.
Yeah. And also, like, so many like lecturers always come up with this learning curve kind of, and I think it's like kind of illustrative, and I like to take it as an example, just like as in a comparison between like other learning techniques or teaching techniques and then the PBL. So with the PBL, you don't just like study like if this is the threshold, you just don't go like this, and then if here is the exam, you like your learning and studying would go like only here up, but it's like really it starts from the like the middle ground, and then it's just like continuous, and it never goes like super much up. So it's like continuous learning process, right? So I really appreciate that, and like I've actually seen the effects of that. Like now that I don't know, think about the first course that I had during my first year, I still recall stuff from there, and I can like continuously just apply that knowledge to my everyday life. I think it's just mind-blowing.
And that helps with all different types of students. It shouldn't be daunting, right? So part of university is having the challenge. You're in a new environment. You have never been in university before. But you also want to pull on strengths you have. So for some students, problem-based learning works really well because they always do the notes and they're prepared anyway. But for other students who maybe know they're a little bit more of a procrastinator, this helps them with that as well, because they have to show up every class prepared, or else there's no great takeaway.
Exactly.
So I think it works for a multitude of different personalities and teaching and learning skills.
How about like any cons? Do you come up with any cons of problem-based learning, or like what would you?
I guess to that same effect, you really have to trust your peers, you know, that they're gonna do the work and do the readings and come to class prepared. So you're not having a discussion with two people, but hopefully 6 or 7. Yeah,
exactly. And like, let's face it, it's kind of time consuming, but it's worth it. Like in the long run, we are in a university, and I think it's totally worth it. And
I rather read 100 pages once a week than 1,000 right before the exam, right?
Exactly.
And that has to do with that learning curve you have mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we will be moving to the topic of why do we choose this university? And Mona and I have shared our own personal examples of why and our experiences as to why we came to Maastricht, and we have some other students to share their experiences as well.
My name is Felina, and I'm just gonna ask you some questions about your studies and some general questions about your choice to come to Maastricht.
My name is Julia. I am South African German.
Hi everyone, I'm Miriam. I'm from Italy.
My name is Greg. I come from Poland.
My name is Kingston. I'm Australian, Chinese.
Hi, I'm Lara Bertemes. I'm from Luxembourg.
How did you decide to come and study in Maastricht?
I always wanted to study law, but I also wanted to go abroad to have more opportunities.
I was looking for some universities in the Netherlands which offered an English curriculum with a very international atmosphere.
I wanted to explore my opportunities outside of South Africa and get a bit closer to my European roots.
I found to study liberal arts and sciences, which kind of really matched my interest because I have really broad interests and I wanted to combine different things.
At some point I just came across Maastricht University, just like literally searching the web, and I found the program biomedical sciences, and that was literally what I wanted to do.
I heard that Maastricht is the most international university of the Netherlands, so that was pretty straightforward for me.
The fact that the main language of science is English, so I did want to do my program in English.
I'm that kind of person that doesn't like to be spoon-fed. I like to critically analyze things. And this is why I chose the PBL system at Maastricht University.
I really don't regret my choice. I'm so happy with the PBL system.
What would you say was the most difficult part about the decision to move to another country?
It was mainly looking at the location, like where did I want to be.
I think the most difficult part is that you actually need to take this decision that you want to like move out from your country.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is the right choice.
The thing that was scaring me was the actual moving. It wasn't easy, but I'm really happy I made that decision.
Who did you turn to for like help or guidance with, the decision what to study and where to study?
Everyone. I hate making decisions, and so it took me a very long time. It was very tough.
I think I received the most objective opinion on that from my teachers from high school.
It's important to hear other people's opinions, especially those that you value, but you have to make that decision because you know yourself better than anyone else.
I made that decision most of the time with myself, actually. I went to open days, watched a lot of videos.
I went for the open days, and there I met some people, some ambassadors for the Italian team. That helped me realize that it wasn't impossible to come here.
My parents just use French and German a lot, so they couldn't really help me with the motivational letter and so on. So I asked my teachers at high school to help me out.
Do you have any tips or advice for students that are also going through the process of, deciding what to study, where to study?
Reach out, contact universities, look at the programs, even if you don't plan on studying somewhere, and maybe you will get inspiration there.
To be very honest and very realistic with yourself.
Try to pick a city that you like, a country that you know you could live in.
I think it's also very important to remember that your choice of degree and institution is not cast into stone.
Look at all the different countries, the different approaches.
Many people think that it will come by itself, but I really recommend actively looking for it. Actively looking for what you want to do in future, not waiting till the last time.
All right, so now you've heard from some of our peers about
Hello,
why
everyone.
they chose to
now
come to
joined by
Maastricht
Joey.
University
Joey, could you
specifically.
introduce yourself to
However, there's a whole
Yes,
process
sir.
that even
Also
gets you
welcome to
zoomed
everybody
in
at home.
to
Nice to
Maastricht
have you on board
University,
today.
right? So
My name.
where do you even start? Mona, where did you start?
So as I said in my introduction, I kind of started with just reflecting like my own life, right? So just what are my everyday like hobbies? What do I do if I'm on Netflix? What series do I like to watch? Some documentaries. If I'm reading my news, which articles do I like click on?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, So I'm not saying it was like an easy process, of course not, but it takes time. You have to be patient. Just give yourself like really much time to like reflect on your own life and also like reflect on your skills. So like maybe what your peers say, what your parents say about you, like how are you as a person? Are you a team person? Do you prefer doing stuff on your own? Just what are your skills? What is your personality like? Mm-hmm. And maybe that already gives you like an indication to which kind of maybe field or which kind of study would you like to do. For example, if you like to do if you like to read, for example, maybe law, maybe stuff like that, or maybe if. Well, yeah, I mean, just reflecting like your everyday life and skills, I would definitely say that's one of my like really high up like tips kind of. So yeah, I would definitely start by that. And then, as I said in the introduction, I like personally just went through like all these course catalogs of different like universities, because they do differ. I don't know about like the other studies, but especially in psychology, they differ like super much. If it's sociology, if it's neuropsychology, or what it is. So like really emphasize the fact that not all Bachelor of Psychology would be the same.
Right.
So so definitely I would say that. And yeah, just like a tip would be like, don't try to like make your decision to please somebody else, like your parents or the society or something like that. Just like listen to yourself and listen to what do I actually want and what is good for me, because in the long run, I mean, yeah. But then again, nothing is written in stone. That's one of the things that my mom always told me, like it doesn't matter if you start with like psychology and after 2 years you're like, oh, this is not for me, what am I doing? You have still learned something during that process, right?
Definitely.
You're like constantly gaining some new skills and some new insights on yourself and of like other studies, whatever. and then you can always switch. And I think we're gonna hear some more about that later.
Definitely.
But, yeah.
Our friend Tade is
What
going to
do you-
elaborate on that. Yeah.
Exactly. What about you? Where did you start? And
It's so hard to remember because it feels so
Yeah.
long ago now, and
Yeah.
I'm so into the gear of being a student. It's hard to remember a time when I wasn't a university student, but I also think I started pretty broad, like you. And I was asking myself those bigger questions like, do I want a city? Do I want a more rural area? Do I want a confined campus, or do I want to integrate it with the city? For me, it was more important in a way to look at the location, the place, because
right.
I realized that I would be spending the majority of my time actually as a student, not in the classroom, but outside of it. So I was trying to find ways that I could still be comfortable and engage with my surroundings and still be active, have hobbies, hopefully have a job, and also explore a new place because, you know, you grow up probably in the same place for the 18, 19 years and you're on your own and you want to find a place that's comfortable for you but also challenging, like you said. So I definitely started with reflections like you did. And then instead of comparing courses, I compared universities because I wasn't really sure where I wanted to start with studies. So I made pro-con lists. So I would explore websites and I like this aspect and I don't really like this aspect. And eventually in doing these pro-cons lists, I was able to find what was most important to me in a university. You know, like what were the priorities and the characteristics that I needed most. And for me, it was having the smaller classrooms. It was having an advisor that I could talk to and have like a personal feel. I didn't want to be a number in the university. I wanted to be Tessa, of course.
Totally get that.
Yeah, and
exactly.
I wanted to be able to find a community. So when I knew I could have friends. I mean, that's a fairly reasonable concern. It looks like we have a question from the audience. It says, "What are some tips about choosing the city?"
All right, that's a really broad question, but I would definitely mention like as you said, like just a city where you would feel comfortable in. So I don't know, just depending on maybe the size of the city. Here in Maastricht, it's like really, I mean, not like really small, but it's like reasonably small compared to like Amsterdam, Rotterdam.
Yeah.
And I personally really like this size, and just the fact that every time that I go to Jumbo or I don't know, the supermarket or I don't know, whatever, I always like encounter with people, and it's nice, and it's like it connects people, right?
Yes.
So but that's only like my personal experience. Like also the bigger cities obviously have their pros and cons.
Yeah.
And just consider like maybe where have you lived before? Have you liked that? Have you liked the environment? Is there some like specific aspects kind of like which kind of are good for you, or like I don't know.
So some things to consider. You mentioned accessibility, so that has to do with size. Can you navigate easily? You're in a new country and you want to be able to, you can get to class on time, you can get to the grocery store, you can find your friend's house. So those were key to me because I'm really geographically challenged. I get lost a lot. So I needed a somewhat accessible city. Yeah. Also the language, of course, it's Anglophone, so everyone, for the most part, that you interact with speaks English. It's affordable for the most part.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you also look at the culture and the traditions and sports teams and what you can get engaged with in the city.
Exactly.
All right, and we have another question. Do you want to read it out?
No, you go ahead.
So it's about, will it be possible to do an internship during the bachelor's? It's specific for European public health. Now, I'm not a European public health student, but I do know that the university really encourages hands-on applied research learning. So it goes along with kind of the problem-based learning idea, pedagogy, that you're really actively learning. So I do have an internship right now, and I have jobs and I have study, and the university really makes sure that the students like can have this opportunity.
Exactly, and it kind of like encourages us to do like something else, like extracurricular activities. It's not like, okay, it's a full-time job, you have to study all day. Obviously there are students that do that, but like obviously the university kind of like it's kind of like encourages us to like push forward and like challenge ourselves, and if you just feel comfortable with that yourself, there's always going to be like time and like especially like resources, and the university really like helps us to go there, you know, to get out and do something, you know. So
practice the skills that you're learning in the classroom in the real world environment, which is so important. And the university has resources and advisors to help you find the internships, because sometimes that's also overwhelming. But yes, the possibility is definitely there.
And as you were saying, just about the like all these like extracurricular activities and opportunities that the university provides us, I think that's really, really like something that I value, like myself. I don't know, we have like the Marble, the honors program, we have just like stuff like Sports, for example, just to in that, like in the sports and the hobby side as well, there's like support, and there's you know, so
many ways to get involved and engaged. And the university supports that.
However,
even though there are all these exciting options, it still can be kind of daunting, and you don't really know which path will end up working out for you. But we have Joey Mack, who is a study advisor for the School of Business and Economics, and he will show us in a video and try to reassure you about the process of choosing the right university and study for you. Hello, everyone. I'm now joined by Joey. Joey, could you introduce yourself to everyone?
Thank you, Tessa. Also, welcome to everybody at home. Nice to have you on board today. My name is Joey Mack. I'm a student and career counselor at SBE, the School of Business and Economics. Now, you can wonder, what is a student counselor doing? We counsel students, particularly on academic aspects. So things related to study, decision making, how to structure their week, what kind of courses to select, things like time management, how to improve your learning techniques, all kind of supportive related elements within the study. On the other side, we're also a coach during the study the moment things are not running as expected. Maybe you made a wrong decision study-wise. Maybe you're running into personal circumstances affecting you, but also your performance as a student. So my role is really broad. We provide workshops, trainings. We are involved in Bachelor Open Days, where we give these kind of sessions like today, where we share information. So it's a very nice, interesting, challenging, and diverse role I have.
Great, thank you for sharing that. So if you can remember, what was it like for you in the process of selecting a university?
Well, first of all, that was 19 years ago, so times were differently back then. I think information provision from the university perspective was a bit more static back in the days. Of course, I visited open days, but I can very clearly remember that I received quite some folders, some brochures at home with information about all the study programs. And then you reserved an afternoon to went through all of them, wrote down some questions, visit open days, and based upon that feedback, make your decision. But again, it's close to 20 years ago, so times really changed. Yeah.
And how did your university education help prepare you for the position you have now?
It's a very good question, actually. Meaning I studied health sciences, and I'm now working at the School of Business and Economics. I wouldn't say it's the opposite, but it's at least a totally different direction I'm working now. Now, my study program of health sciences was very clinically orientated. So you have to imagine that I specialized in mental health sciences, which is really related to psychology. And during my study, there was a lot of clinical related training, simulation interviews, interview techniques, conversation techniques, knowledge about how people develop, how the brain develops, how personalities develop. And I can use that a lot in my current job. You know, knowledge about students with ADHD, students with dyslexia, students facing issues in daily life, and how that relates to their well-being and subsequently to their performance as a student. So that knowledge is very valuable for me and my daily job. Absolutely.
All right, and now bringing it back to the students, what suggestions would you have for students in selecting the university, and what would you have them consider and ask themselves?
Yeah, we get that question a lot, particularly during Bachelor Open Days. I think it's very important to realize that the process itself of decision making is complex. It results in a lot of insecure feelings because there's a lot of information. Accept already the fact that it will take time before you can fine-tune your decision making. Even before actually choosing the program, I would ask myself, what is it in daily life I like doing or I'm actually doing without anybody telling me to do so? You can ask a friend how he or she perceives you. You can just reflect and think, hey, if I visit a website, what kind of information am I looking for? If I open the newspaper in the weekend, what kind of topics do I first scan? If I discuss things with friends, what is it I discuss with them? And that already indicates the kind of topics you are interested in. And then from that perspective, try to build a bridge towards, okay, what in daily life relates to the kind of things I'm interested in? Possible jobs, talk to family members, talk to the neighbor, talk to somebody you know on the street, talk to your parents. And eventually you start visiting Bachelor Open Days. But it's a very broad, general process which requires time. It's not something you decide upon within a week.
And what you've mentioned thus far has more to do with sort of the academic side of going to university, but a large part of being in university is living in a new place. What non-academic considerations would you recommend students look into?
It is not as if I want to recommend specific activities students should do, but realize that there is the opportunity to do almost anything you want to initiate extracurricular. Students do internships, students volunteer, students join student associations, some students fulfill a board function, some even postpone their graduation in order to include extracurricular activities during their study. It's enriching for you as a person, it's very valuable for your CV. We know that the labor market is very interested in what you did alongside your study. And it tells you a lot about who you are, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. But the thing is, it requires time. And often doing extracurricular things means that you study a bit longer, which also feels very insecure to students. But afterwards, the majority of students are very positive about activities that they initiated and included into their study program.
All right, so now that we've talked about some of the reflections and considerations that you suggested, let's get into more the logistical, practical side. So what do you recommend students do in the actual selection process? Where, if I was a student, where would I even begin? What do you recommend for me?
Meaning there are few steps in that process that all students go through. You start very broad, very general. That's what we started the discussion with. Eventually, when you have some kind of orientation, you start deepening your knowledge. What do I know about the city? What is typical for Maastricht? What is typical for the PBL system we have? What about the faculty? How does the building look like? What kind of people are involved? What about the nationalities of students studying over there? So you step by step by step start asking yourself more, let's say, detailed questions. Eventually, visiting an open day, particularly in Maastricht, we have the so-called experience days, where students can join us for a full day on a regular school day, so not in the weekend, but during the week when other students are also there. And you have a unique opportunity to feel and sniff the atmosphere within the faculty. You can talk to experienced students, you can talk to me as a staff member. And then eventually at some point, after a few months, it's time to really make a decision. And that's a confronting moment because it's quite a big decision, particularly when you're 17, 18 years old. But it takes time, yes.
That seems like it can be a long process, definitely a lot to start with. Do you have any reassuring tips or any information, any final message you want to send to the students?
Of course, meaning I'm a student counselor with a reason. So even after today, after listening to all our feedback, after visiting the Bachelor Open Day, after talking to your parents, your best friend and neighbors, if you still face difficulties fine-tuning your decision-making, reach out to us. A student counselor or a student advisor is available to support you in this process of making a decision. All the best.
All right, thank you. That is good advice. I wish I had had that advice when I was applying to university. Thank you and bye-bye. And hello, it's Tessa again, and though Joey couldn't be here live to talk about the evolution of the study process, we do have a student here, my friend Tade, who will talk about his experience transferring studies. So Tade, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Tade Dovu. I'm from Germany. My father's from Nigeria, so I'm half German, half Nigerian. But I lived like most of my life in Germany. And I'm second year from the Maastricht Science program. And I was always interested in sciences, so like biology, chemistry, also a little bit of physics.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that you're in that study then.
Exactly.
So how did you find Maastricht University?
Maastricht University, I really enjoy it just because the PBL system, I think it fits really well with my character. So in general, like collaboration and the active involvement in learning is something that I prefer much more than like sitting in a lecture hall and listening to a professor for 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what is the learning style like in Germany?
In Germany, it's usually, so it's like really like passive food. You have a lot of lectures, you have a lot of hours in the university, but less like learning in practical sessions of collaboration with other people. And it's also a 6 month, so you usually have a semester, and at the end you write an exam with between like 8 and 10 exams at the end. So it's different than like Maastricht University with like 2 months.
Yeah, so there's the period system at Maastricht
Yeah.
University, and that appeals to you because?
Because for me, I learned what I noticed for myself is that if I have so much time, I will procrastinate. Probably like at the beginning, I will not do that much for university, and at the end, a lot of stuff will accumulate, and I will just like learn everything, and then just like once the exam comes, like kind of spit out.
Loses your mind.
Exactly. And then for this, with the period system, I noticed for myself, it stays in my memory a lot longer. I can also introduce it into other fields in my life, and I also notice I can focus better on the subject in itself.
Okay, good. That's a rave review then. So you started, I understand that you started in a different study and then
Yeah.
you moved to another one. Can you explain your motivation and your thought process when that was going on?
Yeah. So I used to do biomedical science here at Maastricht University.
Yeah.
And then after my first year, I switched over to the Maastricht Science program. And so basically what happened was once that year finished, I mean, I passed all my courses, but I was at the moment where I was thinking, is it something that I want to do for the rest of my life? Is it something that's actually the field of my interest? Is my motivation? Do I have joy at like doing what I do? So during that time, I need to reflect and think about what is actually the thing that I'm interested in. And so then like basically I went to a student counselor from the university who like talked with me through it, which like helped a lot. I had a friend of mine who also used to study MSP, and she also told me, okay, what is the study about? Because liberal arts university.
Yes.
So basically you can build your own curriculum, you can kind of build your path of what you want to do, and you can combine sciences, which is one of the things that I like to do, because there's a lot of different fields that you can combine but still contribute to your end goal pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's when I switched over to MSP.
And what do you study at Maastricht Science program? What sciences are you combining, and how is that different than what you were learning in the biomedical sciences program?
With biomedical science, it was mainly focused on clinical health, but the research part of it.
Okay.
And it was really mainly focused on obviously the medicine part, so the human body and the biology of it. Now at Maastricht Science program, I focus more on I have some neuroscience courses, but also a lot of chemistry. So for example, right now I talk organic chemistry, which is one of the fields that I was not able to take at biomedical science. And so what I want to do at the end with combining biology, chemistry, and a little bit of neuroscience is nutrition, which I figured out after this 1 year. That's one of my main focus, or one of my main interests. And in at Maastricht Science program, I can combine these things.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you learned your true interest, or where you wanted to end up studying, only after a year of studying something that you realized wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
So what else did you learn about yourself in this process of transferring studies?
So at that point, I was at the beginning I was really hesitant. I had the fear of, do I want to, because it's not it feels like you're wasting a year, or you're wasting half a year.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I think in society you're supposed to, okay, you need to start the study and then finish it because you're already so far, so why not?
Yeah.
Continue. But I realized for myself, okay, I still learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the city and just in general about Maastricht University as a student. and that's all contributed to actually not wasting a year, but it was really meaningful. So these kind of things, helped me in that situation.
Yeah, and I think something that Joey talked about in the video is you learned skills and knowledge that you learned in biomedical sciences that is still relevant in your new studies, right? And I know this is still kind of theoretical, but where do you see your studies evolving, or what else are you hoping to be engaged with while in university?
So what else I want to be engaged with? I realized, okay, I'm really like a people's person. I want to, be involved with like doing stuff with people. For example, now that I like got more comfortable in Maastricht, I started to pick up other things outside of my study more. So I'm a student ambassador for my field, like for my program, and also just active as a basketball association where I'm the treasurer, and in general I also work at like youth sports, and those are things that just got with the time. Basically.
Yeah. You learned how to engage and become comfortable with the city and your study and yourself. How do you see your extracurriculars and what you're learning in school? Like, what is the bridge you can make with those?
I think so. One of the main things of PBL is you always work with people.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that you learn and you always need to know throughout your life, and doing that, I think that's one of the main, positive things that I can take away, and I think that's it.
And are you a nutritionist for the basketball team?
I try to, because sometimes guys want to prefer, I don't know, fast food, but obviously if you have the knowledge about certain food that's good, you can contribute it to outside your life. And I think with nutrition for me as well, it's something that you can just use in everyday life situations. I mean, food is such a big part of everyone's life because you have most of the time 3 meals a day. So this is one thing that I can take from my study, and also I'll enjoy reading about outside of it.
Yeah, that's something that I think Mona mentioned as well, like reflecting on what you enjoy doing outside of study. So hopefully there is some connection between what you're reading and what you're doing in your life too. We do have a question from the audience. It's, do you have any tips for writing an application essay in the motivation letter? So I think for Maastricht Science Program and some other programs at Maastricht University, the motivation letter is a key part of the application. So do you have any tips?
For the motivation letter, I think it's just bringing to the table what is your motivation, what makes it you that you want to be, like why does the university gain from having you as a student?
Yeah. So you're selling yourself.
You're selling yourself.
Yeah. So why you? So what parts of Tade, what parts of Tessa make yourself attractive for the university? Why would they want you to study as a student there? What do you bring to the table? And then why the study? So obviously you're applying specifically to the program, so you have to match your interests and advocate why you want to study that path. And then why the place? Why Maastricht specifically? And now we are joined by Sybren Vetter, and he works at the Career Services Center, and you're here to give us some advice on narrowing down the selection process for university?
Among other things.
Okay, sure. So can you tell me a bit about yourself and how you ended up at Maastricht University?
Okay, well, it's a long story. So my name is Sybren Vetter. I'm a career counselor now at GM Career Services. I used to study here 16 years ago. I did educational psychology. And from there, I did lots of different jobs, actually. Like I did a PhD in educational technology. I worked as an educational expert. I worked as a data manager, which is something completely different again. And from there, actually, I rolled into the counseling work as a career counselor, which I've been doing for the last 6 years. And I counsel students from all faculties, from all years, a bit also alumni. Basically, and the questions I help people with really range from help, I have no idea what I'm doing with my study, to I know exactly where I want to go, but how do I get there? And everything in between, basically.
So you clearly illustrated what Tade is going through and what Joey talked about, how what you study evolves and what your practices change throughout your life. So it's not necessarily always a linear path. So what do you tell students who kind of want this predictability, this structure?
Well, I have bad news for them. This linearity does not exist anymore, and that's actually a blessing, I find. But at the same time, if we try to plan our life ahead 5-6 years ahead, that leads to enormous amount of stress in my experience. But at the same time, it doesn't really bring any answers.
Right.
Because you have no idea what's going to happen or where you're going to end up. And it's like for you the same, of course, right? You have no idea that in 1 year going to change, but it's very good. Yeah. Right, it's a very good thing for your life, and for most students they won't change, and that's also fine. But it's just, sure. Why would you want to predict that?
No, I think that's very true. Like if you think about like 3 years ago yourself, did you imagine yourself being now in that space where you are right now?
Yeah.
Something else.
Yeah, I can tell you when I was applying for university, I did not think I was the one that was going to be advising people on how to apply for university. I mean, it seems so far away, but I feel like one thing that everyone's talked about, and I think you have definitely some expertise on, is we've talked about reflecting, right? So like, what are we interested in? Where do we what are our skills? What is our learning style? But how do we, like, that's kind of abstract. Can you help us, give us some tools or tips on what to consider, or how do we know our strengths and weaknesses?
Well, I think actually what you have all been telling at the table is quite a good showcase of how to do reflection, because you've all taken quite a long time for it.
Right.
And I think that's very important. Like, you can't hurry this. This is not something where you can say like, okay, now I should just choose my study next week and I'm going to reflect quickly and then I know what I'll be doing. The problem is I see a lot of students actually who have done that, or where that is the case, or where they get the pressure from home. That's actually also a case that I run into quite a lot, where parents or family think you should do that because that leads to good money when you're finished.
Right.
The reality is that's not how it works anymore, right? If you do it, let's just take an example. Actually, a lot of my students who I see are doing medicine, but if you do medicine, that doesn't actually mean that you will become a doctor anymore. Not at all. Actually, I think a big group of them are not doing medicine to become a doctor. They do medicine because they find it very interesting.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other jobs you can do with that. Only people around us, they don't know it.
Yeah.
They have no idea what you can do with that. That can make it difficult sometimes, because we should reflect on ourselves and what we want, but we're surrounded by often very well-meaning people who will help us, who want to help us.
Yeah.
Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, like, when you were commenting on this, I'm just like, the thing that I do actually every day is just reminding myself, like, or asking myself the question, like, am I happy right now? Am I happy? Like, am I getting the most out of my life right now on my studies? Do I feel just comfortable in my studies? Obviously, there is stress involved. There is difficulties, but those are challenges to overcome. And just overcoming those challenges also, like, you're building yourself and you're finding yourself. So there's no like, okay, exactly as you said, like if you study medicine, if I study psychology, I can just as well choose to do a master's in, I don't know, economics or whatever, clinical. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be a therapist, which I'm not going to be. But that's the thing.
Actually, you can't even become a therapist at this moment if you continue here, because we don't offer that in psychology. So there are other methods.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, of course, actually wanted to jump in on that. Huh? Like, that's one of the beauties now of the bachelor master system, that we shouldn't forget. You can really just study psychology and you can do a master in something else, and that is fine. That is great. Actually, it can be very interesting also for possible employers, because you actually bring two fields to the table, and not just one perspective, but you can actually combine them. Especially on university level, when you go into work, it's normally expected to work in a multidisciplinary environment anyway. Right. So not having this pure vision of one side of the story is actually a very beneficial thing to have.
So then, should potential careers not play any role in the university selection process? I've always wanted to become a doctor, and so should now I just study art? Like how do I balance this, you know?
No, I think this is where the reflection really comes in. Do I want to become a doctor? Or do I think I want to become a doctor? Yeah. And I've seen people who really want to become a doctor, and that's great. But that is the rare occasion where people are really focused on, that's what I want to do. So some time ago I had a lady, she wanted to become an astronaut, she thought. She was like, yeah, that's really what I want to become. Now, that's a typical kind of situation where you do need a long-term plan. That's not something you become And then we went really into it, and then you have to do the work, right? Because it's easy to say, I want to become an astronaut. That's very easy words to say. But the actual work you have to do for that, that's a lot. Now, the conclusion was, the moment we went into it together, what do you need to do? Well, either you become a pilot in the army, or you do research, and you have to do a PhD in a field which they basically need to use in space. At the moment she realized that a PhD was in order, that was off the table.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, that's not for me then. Which is fine, better now than that she would have gone 3 years in. And from there on, we could go on and look, okay, what do you want then?
So then you help break down the steps of like,
Yeah.
what if, so this career is, I have it in my mind, seems kind of far away, I want to just get there, right? But
Yeah.
there are some steps along the way, and that's something that you help students do.
Yeah. Absolutely,
Yeah.
And you don't need necessarily someone like me. Like you need people around you who will be critical. Who will say like, "Are you sure you want that? Or why? Or like, what is the reason why you want to do it?" And if you can answer that from the heart, then you're on a good track. And why exactly, or what exactly that will lead to, who knows?
Yeah.
But if you can't really answer that, then there should be some alarm bells ringing. Like, oh, wait a moment, I need to know this.
Yeah, and I would say like if you don't like the process that leads to the outcome or to your career or whatever, then you're not maybe on the right track.
No.
So it's the process, it's all the steps. It's the PBL sessions, if you're liking it, is the exam preparation. It's internship, possible job, stuff like that. It's not only like, okay, now it's this hard work, I'm not enjoying my life to get to some point, because that means that maybe the outcome isn't actually that like good either.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, the training you're doing is for stuff you don't
yeah.
like.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
That's-
many people just forget that. So yeah.
Yeah, but to do that, that's the hard work. Huh? Like the safe way, the easy way is to do what you think should be done, or what other people are telling you. Like, hey, you do this, and that ends up I do law, and that ends up me being a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's the easy thought, right? Where you don't have to work very hard for it. The harder way is to say, I don't know, but I'm gonna see and find out during the way, because it takes a lot more effort. Huh? That's the harder way in that way.
And that's kind of daunting too.
Yeah,
so
it is.
if we don't know what career we're going to end up in, what can we prepare for, or what can we work on during our studies that will help us prepare for this questionable mystery career?
Well, in that way, actually, you just touched on before, it's the skills, the competencies, the values. That's also what we're hiring people for normally. That's, like in the hiring process, you will often see that, okay, we need a master's degree. That might be a minimum. But then already there's a whole long list of skills, competencies, and all those kind of things which we also would like to have. And that's actually where the real decision is made. And because often you see, like, we need a master's degree in one of these fields, and similar. In other words, that's already not that important. Sometimes, like in your background, for example, it could be that they say, no, we need a specific background in this, because then you need that much specific knowledge. Okay, but that's also what you're working up to.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah, I think there's also one thing that you after your bachelor, you still have time. It's not, okay, in the bachelor you need to specify exactly on the thing that you want to do, but you still have a master's where you can specialize, and then you can, I think I heard from a lot of people, like from my friends, that especially the masters where the point where they actually found out, okay, that's exactly the thing where what they will contribute at the end to the job.
And I feel like there's so many checkpoints along the way, right?
Exactly.
So you're going through bachelor's and you're taking these courses, and that course doesn't work for you. And then I'm on the basketball team, and I realize, you know what, I really don't like organizing the schedule. So management, not for me. And then I'm going to my internship, and it turns out I really love the people side of it. So the collaboration, so that's for me. So you're taking notes throughout the way, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Right, and actually internship, huh? like if we there was a question before, right?
Yes.
Like can I do an internship? And I get this question sometimes from first year students who are already worried whether they can do an internship or not. And that for me is then the question, like, but calm down. Have fun with what you're doing right now, please. It's like, have fun.
Yeah.
You'll see, maybe you don't want to do an internship. That's also fine. It's not that we only hire people who had an internship.
I had to deal with this because I was starting as a first year after transferring from university in the US. So when I was a first year, most of my peers were third years. So they were having their internships, their 9 to 5s. They were in the office, and I was learning where the grocery stores were. And I felt a little inferior. And I had to, take and reflect on myself and be like, first, you get to know the city, you meet people, you make friends, you get your bearings, and you learn along the way from just that first year of taking those intro courses, of going to those like awkward bar crawls, that those are where you like, that's like, it's important to just familiarize yourself and get comfortable before you jump onto these adventures, and they're there for you. They're just, you don't have to do them immediately.
Exactly. Just like the tip would be to just like take your time and like relax and just like reflect all the time, kind of like am I happy? Am I, doing the right thing? I say. And what you were saying about like the like going to some specific like study, it doesn't like have to occur like this, right? So like one thing that I've always wanted to, like what I say to my younger siblings or whatever, just to like, as your bachelor, go to some, like start with something broad, right? And I think in Maastricht the programs are kind of like broad, because then like during the first years, like all these courses differ so much, and you get like all these insights on like on what does that field like can possibly lead you to, right? So like for example, now we're having like a task on negotiation in psychology, and I'm like really interested in that, right? So that's like I'm already like learning like, okay, if I'm like really vibing this now, maybe that could like already be an indicator to something as economics as a master. So yeah.
So we talk about reflecting in preparation for university, but it's also something you do throughout your time at university.
Yeah.
I think also one important thing we need to remember is that we're still young. Because most of the time people think, oh, you're 25, you need to have everything figured out, you need to lead that perfect way and then end up in a job. But a lot of times you can still change. Like you see people being old, and once they figure out they got their perfect job, that's when they're like happy with their life, and you don't need to be 25 and have everything like perfectly set up. And I think that's one of the things you need to.
We have the whole life to
Exactly.
work,
Exactly.
We're gonna work like what, like 80 until 80 years old,
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you have to take it now, like do it now, because like also the sort of, well, I nearly call it old-fashioned way of thinking, like I'll do it when I'm retired. I'm sort of assuming I'm not going to have retirement in some way, right? So I better do it now. Like it's like, if you don't do it now, when like, oh yeah, next year, no, next year,
Exactly.
maybe now first, and then that's.
This is a time to challenge yourself and try new things, for sure. Also, like with the going abroad, just to, that's it. We can just go there.
Challenge yourself. Well, we have a question.
Exactly.
But one thing on that is, of course, like you challenge yourself, but it's really like in the end, it is you're doing a study because you want to do something that will make you happy.
Yeah.
What's the point in studying something if you don't enjoy it? There's just no point.
Yeah.
You better just do something else.
That's true.
I think that's a really good note to end on, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
That should be the philosophy underpinning everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have some more logistical questions coming up from the audience. Which grades do we submit when applying?
Well, I think it really depends on the study. I remember from MSP, it was they looked for us in obviously the science subjects. So it was math, physics, chemistry, biology, but in general, I mean, I submitted my whole the grades from all the classes in high school. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's program specific, and this information is on the website. So if you do some searching, you will, I think, pretty easily find this information. Another question is...
Maybe I can still add to that, like with the... if they ask for grades, then you give them. But very often the grades are not that important in the Netherlands anyway.
That's
like
true.
sometimes for specific programs they might ask just to make sure.
Yeah.
Most time, but they don't worry too much about it. It's the motivation is much more important than your grades normally.
Yes, but you can find out whether or not there is a motivation letter and what components you need in the application process on the admissions tabs for the different programs. And then what is the specific platform when applying to... It's StudyLink, right?
Yeah, but I think all this information is like
still
online really clearly not in our only in our university, but like in general. I think this information is easily reached. So you just have to like do your research and just take like one day to do your research, for example, 1 week, like just put some time and effort to that and really go through the courses, as I said, and and I would say like start early, because like many people, like my of my friends, they have said like, oh yeah, like I just rushed through it, and yeah. And just be aware of the deadlines, I think.
Yeah, deadlines are important, and if you have more questions, people can also just go to admissions.
Yes.
And then there's a help desk for admissions. If there are specific questions like this, which it's difficult for us to answer now, of course, on the spot and that way, but there's a whole help desk available for them, right?
Also on the Maastricht University Facebook page, there is a live question chat box, and workers at our Student Services Center will help answer those questions and help refer you to the specific departments that might need further help you answer those questions. But we're really excited that you're eager to apply and are already on this step. And clearly this worked.
Yeah.
All right, do we have any final notes?
Then when do the studies normally start? That would be on August, September, right? Last week of August, starting with the income, and then like an intro week, and then just right to the studies.
Exactly.
Yeah. But all this information will come, and we're happy that you're already at the excited point where you're eager to apply, or I think we'd like to see you on campus, whether or not that be virtually or in person. And I think with that wraps up our show. Thank you for coming. We really liked talking with you, and I liked talking with you all. And
likewise.
Thank you for having me.
I hope to see you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
My name is Felina, and I'm just gonna ask you some questions about your studies. And my name is